My husband thought he could live off me after the divorce, but the revenge I served shook his entire world. And trust me, he never saw it coming. Before I tell you how I turned his little plan upside down, make sure you hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and tell me in the comments what you would have done in my place. This one's wild. I'm not the type of woman who goes looking for revenge. Honestly, before everything happened, I was the fix it, forgive it, and move on kind of person. But life has a funny way of changing you, especially when the person you trusted the most decides to take advantage of you in ways you never imagined. My name is Mariah. I'm 38, living in Atlanta, and I've spent the last 15 years building a career and a life I was proud of. When I married my husband Derek 13 years ago, I really believed we were the type of couple who would grow old together. Gray hair, wrinkled hands, porch swings, all of it. But reality? Reality hit me so hard, it knocked the air out of my chest. Derek had always been charming, smooth talker, never raised his voice. The kind of man who could walk into a room and make people laugh without even trying. But what I didn't know, what I refused to see, was how comfortable he was living in the shadow of my success. See, when we got married, Derek's business wasn't doing well. I supported him, helped him stay afloat, even loaned him money from time to time. I didn't mind. That's what marriage is, lifting each other up. But somewhere along the way, lifting him turned into carrying him. By year 10, Derek barely worked. He bounced between ideas, music studio, clothing brand, car flipping, never sticking to anything longer than a few months. Meanwhile, I was grinding. I had a corporate job, a side consulting business, and 2 rentals under my name. The bills? Mostly on me. The vacations? Me. House maintenance? Me again. Still, I told myself it was just a phase. He just needed time, support, patience. Turns out, he needed none of that. He needed me, or rather, my money. I didn't know it yet, but Derek had already started planning his exit long before the divorce came. He was laying the groundwork, building the narrative, making himself look like the helpless husband who sacrificed everything while his wife chased her career. And I fell for it. But let me back up a bit. The beginning of the end started a year before the divorce, when Derek became increasingly secretive. He'd leave the house late at night to clear his head. He'd hide his phone. He'd turn away whenever he texted someone. But whenever I confronted him, he'd give me that soft smile of his, gentle eyes, hands out calmly, and tell me I was overthinking. Babe, you're stressed. You're working too much. I'm not doing anything. And for a while, I convinced myself he was right. One Saturday morning, while he was still asleep, I decided to grab breakfast. When I got back home, I noticed a notification on his laptop. An email preview popped up while the screen was still locked. From Attorney Jenkins, subject, regarding marital support options. My stomach dropped so hard I thought I might faint. I tried to unlock the laptop, but he'd changed his password. That was new. I held myself together until he woke up. When I asked why he was emailing a lawyer, his entire energy shifted. He got defensive, loud, angry, accusing me of snooping, saying I didn't trust him. But you don't talk to lawyers about marital support unless you're planning something. Weeks went by, and Derek became emotionally distant. He stopped pretending. No more goodnight kisses, no more love you texts, no more movie nights on the couch. It was like living with a stranger. Then, one afternoon, I came home early from work. His car was in the driveway. I walked in quietly. Our house was never silent when he was home. TV always blasting, music always playing. But that day, nothing. Until I heard a man's voice, and then a woman's laugh. My heart thundered in my chest as I followed the sound to the kitchen. There they were, Derek and some woman sitting at the counter drinking wine, talking about a fresh start. And the woman, young, maybe 25, was looking at my husband like he hung the moon. I didn't scream, didn't cry, didn't even step forward. I simply said, "Derek, we're done." He looked shocked, like I was the one ruining his plans. But here's the part that really messed me up. He didn't apologize. He didn't deny it. He didn't chase after me. Instead, he just sighed and said, "I knew you'd find out sooner or later. Look, let's just make this easy. The lawyer already drew up some options." Options. Options. Like he had the right to option my life, my money, my home. Like he thought he could walk out of the marriage with benefits. I walked out of the house that day and called my own lawyer. And that's when I learned the full extent of Derek's plan. He had been preparing to file for spousal support, claiming he had sacrificed his career for the marriage, saying I was the breadwinner and he deserved compensation to maintain his lifestyle. His lifestyle that I funded. But if Derek thought I was going to sit quietly while he tried to drain me dry, he hadn't met this version of me. This was the moment the revenge began. Carefully, quietly, legally, and oh so satisfyingly. And trust me, by the end of it, he regretted ever thinking he could live off me after the divorce. The days after I discovered Derek's email and confronted him were some of the most surreal days of my life. I moved out temporarily and stayed with my cousin in Midtown, giving myself space to think. Walking away from my own house felt humiliating at first, but I needed clarity, needed distance from the man who had been quietly plotting to turn me into his personal retirement plan. I spent the first night lying awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every conversation Derek and I had in the last year. All the excuses, all the late-night drives, all the fake business ideas that never went anywhere. It all made sense now. He wasn't trying to build anything. He was waiting for me to keep building so he could benefit after he left. My lawyer, Ms. Jordan, was a sharp, no-nonsense woman in her early 50s, the kind of attorney who didn't blink when discussing strategy. When I sat in her office, hands shaking, she listened without interrupting, not a single reaction on her face. Then, when I finished explaining everything I'd seen and learned, she folded her hands together and calmly said, "Mariah, your husband has been preparing a financial ambush, but fortunately, he's not as clever as he thinks." She slid a folder across the table. Inside was a breakdown of Derek's situation based on what they could find publicly. Failed business filings, inconsistent tax records, unpaid credit accounts, and a list of assets he had not disclosed to me. Apparently, he'd actually been making money, a decent amount. He just wasn't using that money for anything related to our life. Instead, he was funneling it through a small business account connected to a consulting firm I didn't know he had. The money was going out just as fast as it came in. Bars, hotel rooms, jewelry purchases, and 2 expensive flights to Miami that he never mentioned. "Is that woman from your house the same one he flew out?" Miss Jordan asked. I nodded slowly, bitterness rising in my throat. It made too much sense. "So," Miss Jordan continued, "here's what we do. You stay calm, you don't confront him again, and you don't let him know we know anything. Let him think you're emotional and unprepared. Men like Derek always underestimate the women they've taken for granted. And that," she said with a faint smirk, "works in our favor." Her confidence was like oxygen to me. For the first time in weeks, I felt the ground beneath my feet again. And then she added something that changed the entire course of the divorce. "You do realize he may owe you spousal support." I blinked at her. "What? How? He doesn't work." She raised an eyebrow. "He does work, and it's documented. He hid income. That's fraud. We'll subpoena the records and make sure everything comes out in court." I wasn't expecting that. Derek had spent years making himself appear jobless, stressed, helpless, entrepreneurial, but unsuccessful. And all that time, he was quietly stacking money for himself and preparing to demand support from me. When I left Miss Jordan's office, The sun felt warmer, the air sharper, the world clearer. I wasn't helpless. I wasn't defeated. I wasn't the woman Derek assumed I would be. And I wasn't done. 3 days later, Derek called me for the first time since I had walked out. I let the call sit on the screen for a moment before answering, only because I wanted to hear how he was going to lie this time. "Mariah, look, we need to talk," he said in that same calm, soft voice. The voice he used whenever he wanted something. I leaned back on the couch, my expression blank even though he couldn't see me. "About what?" He sighed dramatically. "I think we both said things we didn't mean. Maybe we can work something out. Come home. Let's talk face to face." Work something out? If only he knew how much working out was happening behind the scenes. "Derek, I'm not coming back," I replied. "We're done." He went silent for a moment. Then he laughed. A short, humorless chuckle. "You really think you're going to end a 13-year marriage over some little misunderstanding?" Misunderstanding. That word made my jaw tighten. "I saw you with her," I said quietly. He clicked his tongue in annoyance. "That wasn't what it looked like." I almost laughed. At this point, Derek was running out of creativity. "Derek, you had wine with her in our kitchen. You introduced her to your friend on speaker as your new beginning." He paused, and then, instead of apologizing or explaining, his tone shifted into something icy, strategic, almost rehearsed. "Well, if that's how you feel, then we'll just let the divorce process play out. My lawyer already explained my rights, so we'll handle things legally." There it was, the moment he dropped the mask. He wasn't calling to reconcile. He was calling because he wanted to make sure his plan was still on track. But he still didn't know my lawyer was 5 steps ahead of him. "You'll be hearing from my attorney," I said, then ended the call. 5 minutes later, he texted, "Mariah, please don't make this messy." Messy? He had no idea what messy truly looked like. A week later, I returned to the house with Miss Jordan to retrieve some personal belongings. Derek wasn't home, but his car was gone, probably off using our money with his little Miami companion. The house felt so different. What used to feel warm now felt cold and hollow. I went upstairs to the bedroom, grabbing clothes, documents, jewelry, things that were mine and mine alone. While I packed, Ms. Jordan walked around quietly, observing the home's condition. "He's been living comfortably," she murmured, flipping through a stack of recent mail. "Comfortably enough that a judge won't see him as financially dependent." She was right. The house was spotless, which meant the other woman was probably doing the cleaning. New items were scattered around. Shoes that weren't mine, hair products I didn't use, a purse on the chair in the living room. Ms. Jordan took photos, every single one. Because women like Derek's new fling leave evidence everywhere. And evidence was exactly what we needed. Downstairs, Ms. Jordan paused at the counter. "You said he's asking for support?" "Yes," I replied. She shook her head with amusement. "He's living with someone else in your marital home, using your funds and hiding income. He won't get a cent. In fact," she tapped her pen against the counter, "we're going to make sure he regrets ever filing." For the first time since all this began, I smiled. A real smile. Because now the game had changed, and Derek had no idea what was coming. Leaving the house that day felt like closing a chapter, but not in the sad, heartbreaking way people expect after a breakup. It felt more like closing a book I should have stopped reading years ago. When the front door clicked shut behind me, I felt lighter, even though the real fight hadn't started yet. Derek didn't know that every single thing he was doing, every slip-up, every lie, every hidden dollar, every new beginning was being documented, carefully, legally, silently. And the best part? He kept giving us more ammunition without even realizing it. The following Monday, Miss Jordan called me. "Mariah," she said in her controlled, powerful voice, "we filed the response to his petition. But something interesting came up." My heart skipped. "Good or bad?" "Oh, it's very good. Very good for you." She explained that Derek had officially claimed, on record, that he had no job, no income, and was entirely dependent on my financial support to maintain his lifestyle. The same lifestyle he was enjoying with another woman in my home. "But here's what he didn't realize," she continued. "Your husband's business accounts weren't as hidden as he thought. He didn't separate the EIN numbers, and one of the accounts is linked to the same address as your house. The court will have immediate access to the transaction history." I almost choked. "You're saying the judge will see everything?" "Every dollar," she confirmed. "Every hotel booking, every bar receipt, every flight, every gift, all of it." I sank back into my chair, covering my mouth with my hand. For the first time in weeks, I laughed, a real hysterical, surprised laugh, the kind that comes from watching karma pull up a seat at the table. Miss Jordan chuckled too, which caught me off guard. "Mariah," she said, "I've seen men try this before. But your husband? He is shockingly sloppy. This will not go how he thinks." Later that week, Derek called again. I stared at the screen for a moment before picking up. "Mariah," he began, sounding unusually desperate, "my lawyer said you filed something. Why would you do that without talking to me first?" I blinked. The audacity. "Derek, we're getting divorced. We don't negotiate privately anymore. Everything goes through legal Chan." His tone sharpened. "You're making this harder than it needs to be." I took a slow breath. "No, Derek. You made it hard when you brought another woman into my home. You made it hard when you hid income. And you really made it hard when you tried to set me up for spousal support." Silence. Then a cold, forced laugh. "You think you're going to win? You think you're going to walk away without giving me anything? I know my rights." "Good," I replied calmly. "Then you should also know consequences." He started yelling, something about his life falling apart, and how could I do this to him? I put the phone on speaker and walked around the room while he spiraled. It felt symbolic. I wasn't attached anymore. Not to his voice, not to his words, not to his chaos. When he finally realized I wasn't reacting, he quieted down. "Mariah," he said more softly, "I'm gonna need money, okay? Just until the divorce is finalized. I'm staying at the house and..." I cut him off. "You're living with another woman, Derek. In my house. Why would I give you money?" He inhaled sharply. "So you're just gonna leave me struggling?" I almost said struggling. You weren't struggling in Miami. But I held back. I wasn't giving him the satisfaction of knowing what I knew. Instead, I replied, "Talk to your lawyer," and hung up. I stared at the call-ended screen and felt something shift inside me. That conversation, the entitlement in his voice, the expectation that I should still provide for him, fueled something in me. Not anger, not bitterness, resolve. 2 weeks later was the first official mediation meeting. I walked in wearing a navy blue blazer, my hair pulled back, my posture calm but confident. Miss Jordan walked beside me like a general, heading into battle. Derek was already seated at the table, with his lawyer, a younger man who looked anxious, like he knew he was helping a client who had already shot himself in both feet. Derek looked at me with this strange expression, half frustration, half disbelief, half something else I couldn't place. Maybe regret, maybe fear, maybe shock that I wasn't the broken woman he expected me to be. He opened his mouth as if to speak to me directly, but Ms. Jordan raised a hand. "We will not be speaking privately. All communication goes through counsel." Derek's mouth snapped shut. The mediator began. "We're here to discuss temporary support requests and marital property considerations." Derek's lawyer spoke first. Given that Mr. Walker does not currently work and has relied on his wife's financial support, we believe temporary spousal support is appropriate during the proceedings." Ms. Jordan didn't interrupt. She let him speak. She even nodded politely. Then she opened her folder. "Your Honor," she said smoothly, "we have evidence that Mr. Walker has been working, earning money, and intentionally hiding income for the purpose of manipulating financial expectations during this divorce." Derek's head jerked toward her. His lawyer blinked rapidly. The mediator leaned forward. Miss Jordan slid several documents across the table. "These are bank statements, business filings, and transaction logs, all tied to Mr. Walker, all showing consistent income, all contradicting his claims." Derek's face turned pale, then red, then pale again. "And additionally, Miss Jordan," Jordan continued, her voice like velvet over steel, "we have evidence that Mr. Walker has been cohabitating with another woman in the marital home, which he claims is essential to his housing stability. Since he is not living alone, nor is he financially dependent, nor is he truthful about his income, we request that the petition for temporary spousal support be denied in full." The mediator looked stunned. Derek looked like he wanted to crawl out of his own skin. His lawyer looked like he wanted to crawl out of the legal profession altogether. And me, I felt something inside me settle, a deep, powerful calm. Because this wasn't even the revenge yet. This was just the beginning. But the moment that truly set Derek's world spinning happened right after the session. As we were packing our things, Derek leaned in toward me, his voice low and trembling with anger. "You think you're going to win? You think you're going to destroy me?" I didn't flinch. I met his eyes and said, "I'm not destroying you, Derek. You did that all by yourself." I walked away. And for the first time, he couldn't follow. Mediation ended, but the fallout had only begun. Derek called me 3 times that night. I didn't answer once. By the next morning, he had sent a string of texts, apologies, guilt trips, accusations, threats, then more apologies. It was like watching a man spin in circles inside a collapsing room, trying to find a door that wasn't there. I didn't respond, not because I wanted to be cruel, but because I had finally learned the lesson I should have learned years ago. You can't save a man who is committed to sinking himself. And Derek, he was sinking fast. The next few weeks were quiet on the surface, but behind the scenes, the legal process was moving like a freight train. Ms. Jordan began digging deeper, and the more she uncovered, the more Derek's carefully crafted helpless husband act unraveled. For every document he submitted, trying to prove he was financially dependent on me, she uncovered 2 more pieces of evidence showing the opposite. Bank transfers, side income, invoices sent to clients, under-the-table payments, cash withdrawals, hotel charges with the other woman's initials, restaurant bills for 2, a necklace he bought for her, 2 flights to Miami, and a 3rd one reserved in advance. The man was practically writing his own downfall. But it was what she uncovered next that shook me. One evening, Ms. Jordan called. "Mariah, I need you to sit down." I froze. "What is it?" She took a breath. "There's a joint account you didn't know about." My heart dropped. "Joint account? Under both our names?" "No, under both his names," she said, emphasizing the words. "Derek Walker and Derek Matthews." I blinked, confused. "Matthews? That's not—" "It's his mother's maiden name." I felt the blood drain from my face. Derek had created a second identity. Not illegal. He wasn't pretending to be a new person, but he used a different last name to avoid linking the account to our marriage. And the balance inside? Let's just say it was not the account of a man struggling to survive. Almost $42,000. Money he never used to help with bills. Money he didn't invest into our marriage. Money he didn't mention, ever. Money he planned to keep for his new beginning with her. I sat on my bed, the phone pressed to my ear, feeling something between heartbreak and disgust. "Mariah?" Miss Jordan asked gently. "Are you there?" "Yeah," I whispered. "Yeah, I'm here." "We're freezing the accounts first thing tomorrow," she said. "Legally, it's marital income. He tried to hide it. That's going to look very, very bad in court." I rubbed my forehead. "So, what happens now?" "Well," she said, "now we take this to the judge. And then your husband will finally understand that he can't live off you. Not during the marriage, not after the marriage, not ever." That night, I couldn't sleep. Not from fear, not from worry, from clarity. Because in that moment, I realized that Derek's betrayal wasn't just emotional. It wasn't just romantic. It wasn't just disrespect. It was strategic. He didn't leave the marriage for love. He left the marriage for leverage. He wanted half of everything I built, plus spousal support, plus access to my assets. He didn't just want a clean break. He wanted a lifetime salary. From me. And the woman he brought into our home? She wasn't just a fling. She was part of his new life blueprint, the one he planned to fund with my money. That realization burned hotter than anger. It felt like betrayal braided with insult, and something inside me hardened. Derek had pushed me into a corner. He wanted to drain me dry. But instead, he woke up a woman who had nothing left to lose and everything left to protect. 2 days later was the emergency hearing. I wore a gray pantsuit and minimal makeup. Calm, collected, sharp. Derek walked in looking stressed. Wrinkled shirt, hair unkempt, jaw tight. He wouldn't meet my eyes. His girlfriend wasn't there, but the faint scent of her perfume was still clinging to his jacket. It was ironic, really. He wanted to look pitiful, like a man abandoned with nowhere to. But he forgot something. Judges don't care about performances. Judges care about facts. And Miss Jordan came armed with plenty. Derek's lawyer started strong, confident, rehearsed, trying hard to paint Derek as the dependent spouse who needed support. But halfway through his speech, the judge interrupted. "Mr. Walker," the judge said, eyebrows raised, "you claim you have no income, yet records show consistent payments into an account connected to your business name." Derek's jaw flexed. He swallowed hard. That's from work I did years ago." Miss Jordan stood up. "Your Honor, the deposits are from the last 6 months." The judge nodded slowly. "Mr. Walker, hiding financial accounts during divorce proceedings is a serious issue." Derek's voice cracked. "I wasn't hiding anything. That money is for business." The judge held up a hand. "Then why did you file claiming to have zero income and no access to funds?" Silence. His lawyer shifted uncomfortably. The judge turned the pages of the file. "And in addition, you are living in the marital home with another woman?" You could hear a pin drop. Derek started to speak, but the judge shut him down again. "Given the financial inconsistencies, the evidence submitted, and your living situation, the court finds no basis for your request for spousal support." Derek's head snapped up. The judge continued, voice firm and final. "Temporary spousal support is denied." Derek's lips parted, trembling. "What? But, Your Honor, Mr. Walker," the judge said sharply, "you are not the dependent spouse in this relationship. In fact, based on the preliminary evidence, you may be responsible for reimbursement of marital assets." He. Derek went from red to pale so fast it was almost comical. The judge added, "We will revisit the financial division once the full audit is complete, but for now, you will receive nothing." As we walked out of the courtroom, Derek stormed toward me, eyes blazing. "You did this," he hissed under his breath. "You turned the judge against me." I stared at him, calm as still water. "No, Derek, you did this. You lied, you cheated, You hid money. Actions have consequences. He clenched his jaw, shaking with anger. You think you're better than me now? I've always been better than the man you've become. His fists balled at his sides. You're gonna regret this. I stepped closer, meeting his glare head-on. No, Derek. For the first time in a long time, I'm finally free of regret. I walked past him without looking back, and for the first time, he didn't chase me. He didn't call my name. He didn't try to spin some excuse, because reality had F. Its plan wasn't just falling apart, it was collapsing straight on top of him. And I wasn't done yet. The morning after the emergency hearing, something strange happened. Derek went quiet. For a man who thrived on noise, complaints, excuses, dramatic speeches, manipulation, emotional tornadoes, his silence was unnerving. No calls, no texts, no surprise visits, no fake emergencies, just silence. And deep down, I knew that meant only one thing. He was planning something. Men like Derek never sit still. They regroup, they rethink, they rebound. They look for new angles, new pressure points, new ways to twist the situation to their benefit. And I was right. Because 2 days later, he sent a text that made my eyebrows hit the ceiling. Derek, we need to talk. I think we should settle privately, without lawyers. I stared at the message, almost laughing out loud. Settle privately? Now that his lies were exposed? Now that he wasn't getting a penny in temporary support? Now that he knew the court was auditing every account he had? It wasn't reconciliation he wanted. It was damage control. I showed the message to Ms. Jordan. She chuckled. Oh, he's panicking, she said. Let him send whatever he wants. Do not answer. I'll handle it. And handle it she did. That afternoon, she sent his lawyer a short, professional message stating all communication must remain between counsel and that any attempts to privately negotiate with me would be documented. Derek's lawyer sent back a single line, understood, which told me everything. He knew Derek was spiraling. He knew the case was collapsing. He knew they had no leverage left. But the first real blow didn't land until the financial audit returned. Ms. Jordan called me in. When I walked into her office, she had 2 thick stacks of papers on the table. Now that he wasn't getting a penny in temporary support, now that he knew the court was auditing every account he had, it wasn't reconciliation he wanted. It was damage control. I showed the message to Miss Jordan. She chuckled. Oh, he's panicking, she said. Let him send whatever he wants. Do not answer. I'll handle it. And handle it she did. That afternoon, she sent his lawyer a short, professional message stating all communication must remain between counsel and that any attempts to privately negotiate with me would be documented. Derek's lawyer sent back a single line, understood, which told me everything. He knew Derek was spiraling. He knew the case was collapsing. He knew they had no leverage left. But the first real blow didn't land until the financial audit returned. Miss Jordan called me in. When I walked into her office, she had 2 thick stacks of papers on the table. One labeled declared income, the other labeled actual income. The difference? Mind-blowing. Everything Derek had hidden, every deposit, every cash job, every client he secretly took on, it was all documented. $42,000 in the hidden account, $18,000 in undeclared client payments, $9,600 in direct transfers from his side hustle, $6,400 from gigs he claimed he never did, 2 checks from a Miami real estate partnership, and the kicker, a $12,000 business grant he had received 6 months prior and quietly used for personal expenses. My jaw dropped. This is all marital income? I asked, stunned. Yes, Ms. Jordan confirmed. Legally, he owes you half of everything he tried to hide. I leaned back in my chair, letting the reality wash over me. So, How much does he owe in total? Ms. Jordan smiled, not a happy smile, but a victorious one. With penalties, interest, and asset reallocation, approximately $41,000. $41,000. The man who thought he was going to drain me, the man who thought he would live off my income after leaving me, the man who thought he could manipulate the system, the courts, and my emotions, now owed me over 40 grand. I sat there in stunned silence. Then, slowly, a laugh bubbled out of me. A full, head-back, eyes-watering laugh. Ms. Jordan joined me. It was the sound of tables turning. But my favorite part of this entire thing, it wasn't the audit. It wasn't the denied support. It wasn't even the financial reversal. It came the next week, at the house. The house I still legally owned. The house he had taken over. The house he let another woman live in. Ms. Jordan and I went to deliver documents and take photographic inventory of the property. Standard procedure. When we arrived, Derek was home. And he wasn't alone. The woman, the same one from my kitchen, opened the door. This time, she didn't look smug or confident. She looked angry, bitter, tired. Her face was red, her eyes puffy, and she had that look women get when reality finally hits them. "Is Derek here?" Ms. Jordan asked professionally. The woman crossed her arms. "He's busy." From inside, Derek shouted, "Let them in." She stepped aside begrudgingly. The moment I walked in, I saw it. The tension, the resentment, the collapsing fantasy. Before I could even say anything, the woman snapped at Derek. "I told you this would happen. I told you she wouldn't just let you take everything." I blinked. She turned to me. "You think you're so smart. You think you can ruin him?" I raised a brow. "Ruined? He ruined himself." "You're a bitter ex-wife," she spat. I smirked. "No, I'm a woman who stopped funding a man-child." She opened her mouth to attack again, but Derek slammed his hand on the counter. "Enough," he yelled. "Both of you, just stop." "Both? Excuse me?" Miss Jordan shot him a warning glare. "Mr. Walker, my client is here for legal reasons, not personal ones. Please keep your emotions contained." Derek gritted his teeth. He looked exhausted, older, defeated. The woman walked away angrily, muttering curses under her breath as she grabbed her purse and headed up the stairs. Miss Jordan shook her head slightly. "Quite a peaceful home you've built here, Mr. Walker." Derek's jaw twitched, but he stayed silent. We walked room to room, documenting everything. Derek followed behind us like a shadow, frustrated, helpless, still trying to save face. But then something happened that surprised even me. Halfway through the tour, Derek spoke quietly, almost broken. "Mariah, why are you doing this?" I turned to him slowly. "Doing what, Derek?" He gestured helplessly. "All of this, the lawyers, the court, freezing my accounts. I mean, you already left. Why aren't you just letting it go?" I stared at him, genuinely stunned. He still didn't get it. He still believed that he was the victim, that I was the aggressor, that his betrayal should have been the end of the story, not the beginning of consequences. "You want to know why?" I asked, my voice calm, steady. "Because you didn't just cheat on me. You didn't just disrespect me. You tried to destroy me financially. You tried to make me responsible for your life after you left ours." He opened his mouth, but I cut him off. "You broke the marriage, Derek. Then you tried to break my future." I stepped closer, not out of intimidation, but clarity. "You wanted to live off me, depend on me, drain me. And now you're shocked the world doesn't work that way." His eyes welled with frustration. Not sadness, not remorse. Frustration. "You're punishing me," he whispered. "No," I replied. "Life is punishing you. I'm just not protecting you from it anymore." He stared at me like he was seeing me for the first time and hating what he saw. Not because I was cruel, not because I was vengeful, not because I was cold, but because I was done. Done enabling him, done carrying him, done letting him rewrite reality. He wasn't losing because of me. He was losing because everything he built was made of lies, and lies never stand for long. That night, his girlfriend moved out. The entire neighborhood heard their argument, cars slamming, doors banging, yelling echoing down the driveway. She left screaming, "I didn't sign up for a broke man." That part, I did laugh at. Later, Derek texted me, "Are you happy now?" I didn't answer, because the truth was, I wasn't happy, but I was finally free. And soon, I was going to be whole again. Because the best part of the entire story, my revenge hadn't even hit its peak yet. If there was one thing I learned through the entire divorce process, it was this. A man who feels entitled to your life will always panic the moment he realizes he's no longer part of it. And the day that realization hit Mark, everything began to fall apart. The first notice. It happened early on a Friday morning. I was at my apartment, my new place, small, clean, bright, and peaceful. I'd just finished my coffee when my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. The message read, "You ruined my life." Then a second message. "I got served at my job. Everyone saw." I blinked, confused for a moment, until I realized this was about spousal support. The lawyer had filed the correction weeks ago, and apparently the updated order had been delivered to his workplace. And just as my lawyer predicted, Mark didn't take it well. He called next, 4 times, then 8 more. Then he started leaving voicemails. His voice shifted from rage to desperation, then to something that sounded like begging. But I didn't answer, not once. He had his chance to talk like a decent adult. He wasted it with manipulation. Now I owed him nothing. The car incident. Around noon that same day, I stepped outside to go run errands, and I froze on the sidewalk. Because there, parked right beside my building, was a car I knew far too well. Mark's silver Honda Accord, and in the driver's seat, Mark. He looked nothing like the man I married. His eyes were sunken, his hair messy, and he had a frantic look, like someone who hadn't slept all night. When he saw me walk out of the building, he jumped out of the car. Lisa, please, just talk to me." I immediately stepped back. "Mark, you can't come here," I said firmly. "This is harassment." He shook his head, running his hands through his hair. "I just need to understand why you're doing this to me. I can't afford this. I thought you were going to help me." There it was, the entitlement, the expectation, like I was still responsible for him. "Mark," I said, my voice calm but cold, "you lied during the divorce. You tried to use me for money. I didn't do anything to you. You did this to yourself." But he snapped. "You left me. You're the reason everything is falling apart." At that exact moment, a neighbor, walking her dog, stepped between us. "Ma'am, is everything okay?" she asked loudly. Mark backed up immediately, embarrassed, caught, exposed. I used the moment to walk straight past him to my car. I didn't look back. I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. The workplace spiral. That weekend, I got a long text from one of Mark's coworkers. She'd reached out before, giving the updates when things were tense during the divorce. She wrote, "Girl, he had a meltdown in the break room today. Like full meltdown. He was screaming about money and saying she turned everyone against me. People are avoiding him." Then another message. "Honestly, he looks like he's about to lose his job." I didn't celebrate, but I didn't feel bad either. Sometimes the consequences we try to save people from are the consequences they need to grow. The financial reality hits. A few days later, my lawyer emailed me. He filed for a reduction in support, claiming hardship. I rolled my eyes. Of course he did. But attached to the email was the best part. The judge had denied his request, because the moment they dug through his financial statements, the truth came out. He had taken vacations during the divorce using our joint savings. He'd spent thousands on electronics. He wasn't paying bills on time. He was living beyond his means again. And the judge said exactly what he deserved to hear. Your financial hardship is self-inflicted. The new woman in his life leaves. Remember the girl he cheated with? The one he thought would upgrade his life after leaving me? Well, she messaged me. Her text read, "I'm sorry. You were right. He is not who he pretends to be." Followed by, "He told me you were going to support him financially even after the divorce. That's why he wanted to be with me, because he said you'd pay our bills." I felt sick reading it, not because I was hurt, but because it showed just how deeply Mark believed in his entitlement. He really thought I would fund the life he wanted, with another woman. But the best line, he asked if I could help him pay his rent this month. I told him no, I'm done. She was out, gone, finished. And another pillar in Mark's falling world collapsed. The apology message that wasn't really an apology. Later that night, he sent me a long message, over 10 paragraphs. It started with, "I'm sorry for how things went, but you have to understand." That phrase tells you everything. He wasn't actually apologizing. He was justifying. He claimed he was confused, overwhelmed, just trying to survive. But the real line that made me shake my head, "I thought since you loved me once, you'd still want what's best for me? Still want what's best for him? After cheating, lying to the court, draining accounts, humiliating me publicly, trying to live off my income?" No. That version of me, the one who kept saving him, was gone. A week later, he tried to show up at my workplace. That was when I knew he was losing grip completely. He didn't get through the front doors because security escorted him out, but the message got back to me. My boss called me into the office. She said, "Whatever is happening, we are here for you, and if he shows up again, we will call the police." That moment told me everything. Even strangers could see how unhinged he'd become. The beginning of my plan. I didn't want revenge that hurt him physically or financially, more than the court already had. I wanted something else. I wanted him to understand that the woman he underestimated was the woman he could never break again. So I started working on something quietly behind the scenes, something he would never expect, something that would change everything for him. A move that would make him realize I'm done being his safety net forever. And when my plan finally unfolded, it shook his world in a way he never saw coming. The weekend after Mark tried showing up at my workplace, something inside me shifted. Not fear, not anger, not heartbreak, clarity. I had spent so long reacting to his chaos that I hadn't taken a moment to actually plan my next steps. And when I finally sat down and thought through everything, I realized something. Mark was losing control of his life because he no longer had control over mine. And that terrified him. Because for years, I was his safety net, emotionally, financially, socially. He lived recklessly because he always assumed I would pick up the pieces. But now he was standing in the ruins of his own choices. And I was rebuilding my life, brick by brick, higher than anything he ever imagined I could. So I decided to take that newfound power and use it, not to destroy him, but to finally make him understand that I was done saving him. Done being the stable one. Done being the crutch. The revenge I planned wasn't childish. It wasn't violent. It wasn't even expensive. It was psychological. It would make him see the version of me he never thought existed. The version that didn't need him. The version that didn't care what he thought. The version who walked away and never looked back. The email that changed everything. It started with a simple email from my lawyer. She wrote, "We can move forward with the financial independence order if you're ready." See, what Mark didn't know was that during the divorce, we had the option to do something called a financial independence filing. Basically a formal statement that permanently disconnects your financial obligations and assets from your ex-spouse beyond the support order. Meaning, He could never access my accounts again. He could never use my credit score. He could never claim me on taxes. He could never reopen discussions about splitting assets. He could never try to reverse the alimony ruling. It was like legally shutting a vault door forever. Most divorced couples don't need it, but with a man like Mark, it was essential. I had delayed it at first because I didn't want to escalate things. But now I needed the boundary in black and white legal ink. I emailed back, "I'm ready, do it." What I didn't know at the time was that filing that document would set off a chain reaction in his life that would shake him far more than I expected. The financial reality check. 2 days after filing the independence order, I got a message from Mark that almost made me laugh out loud. "Why did my bank say I'm no longer linked to your account? I can't access the savings transfer anymore." Savings transfer. Savings transfer. This man had actually planned to quietly siphon money out of my personal savings, money that was mine long before we met, like it was his God-given right. He had actually set up an automated transfer during our marriage and assumed I'd never notice or cancel it. And the only reason he realized it stopped? Because he was still trying to use it. He actually wrote, "You promised you wouldn't leave me struggling." I didn't respond. I just filed that message away mentally as proof. Proof that my revenge wasn't cruel. It was necessary. The job intervention. The following week, my friend Jenna, the one who still worked at Mark's company, sent me a voicemail. She whispered, "Girl, your ex is spiraling. Management pulled him into the office today because he snapped at a supervisor. He said he's under too much pressure because of you. He's blaming everything on you." Then she paused. But here's what nobody told him. They're reviewing his performance and his behavior. He's on thin ice. He thinks you're the one ruining his life. He has no idea he's the one lighting the match. I sat with that for a moment, because that was the thing about Mark. He genuinely believed I was the villain in his story. He couldn't see that the real enemy was his entitlement, his lies, his irresponsibility. He was collapsing under the weight of his own behavior. And that wasn't my fault. The social reversal. But the most unexpected twist came from the people around him. Because while Mark was spiraling, I was shining. I'd started going to a new gym. Started spending more time with friends. Kept my hair done, my nails clean, my outfits sharp. Posted pictures, not to brag, but to celebrate myself. But people talk, and small towns, even American suburbs, love to whisper. I guess word spread about the divorce, about his cheating, about his meltdown, about the financial drama, about the girl who left him, about his declining performance at work. And one by one, his social circle started drifting away. Friends who used to validate him suddenly stopped replying. People unfollowed him. Coworkers avoided him. Neighbors stopped inviting him to gatherings. Men at his job whispered that he lost everything over a stupid mistake. Meanwhile, I was getting messages like, "You look amazing. You're glowing, girl. You seem happier than ever. Proud of you. He didn't deserve you anyway." The contrast was brutal, and the more people uplifted me, the more isolated he became. Not because I rubbed anything in his face, not because I tried to sabotage him, but because people saw the truth. The breaking point message. One night, around 11:30 p.m., I got a message from him. Long, emotional, rushed. It said, "Lisa, I don't know who I am anymore. Everything is going wrong. I feel like the world is against me. But the truth is, I never thought you would actually leave me. I always thought you'd come back." Then the part that hit me. "I didn't think you could function without me, but you're doing better than ever. And I hate that. I hate that I need you more than you ever needed me." There it was. Not an apology, not remorse, just wounded pride. The realization that I was not the weak one, that I was not the dependent one, that I was not the one who crumbled. He was, and that was the revenge he never expected. Because the ultimate revenge, the one that cuts the deepest, a one they never see coming, is seeing you thrive in a life they thought you couldn't survive without them. But I wasn't finished. The true shock, the move that would completely break his illusion, was still coming. A decision I made silently, a step I took without warning, a boundary he never imagined I'd set. And when it hit him, it wouldn't just shake his world. It would change it forever. The night after Mark sent that long, self-pitying message, I stared at my phone for a long time. Not because I felt guilty, not because I missed him, not because I wanted him back, but because for the first time, it finally hit me how deeply he believed he owned me. Maybe not physically, maybe not emotionally, but financially, practically, conveniently. In his mind, I wasn't a partner. I was a resource, and resources aren't supposed to walk away. That message wasn't an apology. It was a confession of entitlement. I didn't think you would actually leave me. I didn't think you could function without me. I hate that I need you more than you ever needed me. There it was, all of it, out in the open, and suddenly, I knew what I needed to do next. Not for revenge, not to hurt him, not to punish him, but to finally end every avenue he had to reach me, drain me, or drag me backwards. The move was simple on paper, but devastating for a man whose entire identity depended on using me to prop himself up. I contacted my lawyer the next morning and said, "Let's finalize the no-contact order." The no-contact order. This wasn't just a personal boundary. This was a legal one. We had enough documented harassment. Showing up at my apartment, showing up at my job, dozens of late-night messages, attempts to access financial accounts, manipulating texts, emotional intimidation, and combined with the financial independence filing from Part 7, the judge saw a clear pattern. My lawyer was confident. She said, given his behavior, this is absolutely a justified request. He had opportunities to communicate through legal channels. He chose harassment. 2 weeks later, we got the hearing date. Mark had no idea, and that's what made it powerful. This wasn't revenge fueled by anger. This was closure. A door I was locking permanently. The day of the hearing. When the day arrived, I expected to feel nervous. But I didn't. I felt grounded, focused, strong. He showed up late, out of breath, frazzled, rumpled clothing, hair a mess. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in days. When he finally sat down across the courtroom, he kept looking at me, like he was expecting me to smile at him, or soften, or show nostalgia. But I didn't. I sat straight, calm, unmoving. For the first time ever, I was not emotionally available to him, and he felt it. You could see it in his eyes. He was scared, not of me, but of losing access to me. Because once that access disappeared, so did his last safety net. The judge's words that shattered him. The judge reviewed everything. The messages, the bank attempts, the unannounced visits, the workplace incident, the financial dependency, the erratic behavior. Then she looked directly at Mark and said, "You continue to violate boundaries, ignore proper communication channels, and attempt to exert inappropriate influence over your ex-spouse's life. Given this behavior, a no-contact order is not only reasonable, it is necessary." Mark's face broke. I don't mean he cried. I mean the illusion he built cracked right in front of everyone. His voice shook as he said, "Your Honor, I'm not trying to hurt her. I just need help." I thought she cared. The judge cut him off. Care does not mean obligation. You are not entitled to her life or her resources. That line did more damage to him than anything I could have said. because the judge just confirmed the thing he refused to believe. I didn't owe him anything. Not sympathy, not support, not attention, not conversation, not forgiveness. Nothing. The order was approved. He was forbidden from texting me, calling me, visiting my home, visiting my workplace, sending messages through others, attempting to access my finances, showing up within 500 feet of me. Violating it would mean immediate arrest, fines, possible jail time. He looked at me one last time as the judge dismissed the case. But when our eyes met, there was no love, no anger, no familiarity, only shock. Because for the first time in his life, he realized I wasn't coming back. His panic starts again. I didn't see what happened afterward, but Jenna did. She told me later, the moment he walked out of the courthouse, he spiraled. He paced the hallway, swearing under his breath, rubbing his face, muttering things like, "She can't do this to me. She's ruining everything. I need her. She can't cut me out like this. I didn't think she'd actually go this far." He even tried calling my number outside the building, and when he saw it was blocked, he threw his phone at the ground. Security came out and had to tell him to calm down or leave. He left, but not calmly. Jenna said he looked like a man whose entire identity was collapsing. And in a way, it was, because without me, he had nothing stable left to cling to. Not a partner, not a backup plan, not financial access, not emotional leverage, not social validation, not control. He was finally, completely, on his own. The freedom I didn't expect to feel. I walked out of that courthouse lighter than air. Not happy he was hurting, but relieved that I was no longer carrying his weight. That I was no longer emotionally handcuffed to someone who drained me. That my future no longer had a version where he could sabotage me again. It was like someone cut the last invisible rope tied around my life. And for the first time in years, I could breathe fully, but this wasn't.
I walked into the mediation room the next week with the same calm energy someone has when they already know how the movie ends. Spoiler, the villain doesn't get the girl, the mansion, or even the dog. Meanwhile, Tom showed up looking like he'd slept in the car he pretended wasn't repossessed. He didn't even try to sit confidently this time. He just slunk into the chair, eyes down, jaw tight. You could practically hear the internal monologue. How is she still winning? Buddy, because I'm a functioning adult. That's how. The mediator smiled politely, which had to be exhausting considering how many divorces she had to watch implode daily. Let's pick up from last session, she said. Tom cleared his throat. I just think it's fair that I cut in. Let's pause. The numbers are what they are. You make money now, you have a job, and you asked for less alimony. So congratulations, you get less alimony. He blinked. But what about the car, and the apartment, and the travel points? And Tom, the mediator interrupted gently, none of those are marital assets anymore. You both agreed on the split 6 months ago. Watching the realization settle into him was like watching someone flip through a tragic comic book in slow motion. The man wasn't devastated. He was confused, like he'd entered a world where actions had consequences and didn't enjoy the vibe. But when the mediator went through the paperwork again, double-checking signatures, Tom just kept deflating. You're actually okay with this? He asked me, eyes narrowing as if I was hiding some secret plot. I've been okay with it for months. The only one still emotionally camping in 2021 is you. He exhaled a choppy breath. I just thought, after everything, maybe you'd want to help me get back on my feet. You ever hear something so wild your brain just blanks out for a second? That was me. Tom, I literally did help you. Repeatedly. For years. And you mistook it for a permanent lifestyle. He winced, like truth was a physical object thrown at him. The mediator slid the final agreement across the table. If both parties sign here, she said, this will complete the modification. I signed mine. Affair-free, drama-free, tears-free. Tom's hand hovered over the document, shaking a little. He looked up at me, and for the first time in all this chaos, he actually looked small. So this is it? He asked. It's been it for a long time. You're just catching up. After a long beat, he signed. And just like that, the circus tent officially came down. He didn't storm out. He didn't yell. He didn't try to guilt trip me or stage a dramatic exit worthy of a discount soap opera. He just left, slow, quiet, like someone walking out of a building they accidentally burned down. As soon as the door closed, the mediator let out a breath like she'd just finished running a marathon. "I hope your next chapter is peaceful," she said. It already was, even with all the chaos, the schemes, the financial gymnastics, the courtroom monologues, the man-child meltdowns. I had reclaimed my sanity, my time, my life, but the universe wasn't done giving me unexpected plot twists. 2 weeks later, I got a text from an unknown number. "Tom, I got the job, a better one, and I'm moving to Denver. I won't bother you anymore." Attached was a picture of an offer letter, a real job, benefits, stability, something he should have pursued years ago. I stared at the phone longer than I'd admit. Some people need the world to shake them. Others need someone to walk away and let them face themselves without a safety net. I hadn't ruined him. I hadn't destroyed him. I'd just finally stopped enabling him. A weird tug pulled at my chest. Not affection. More like relief, mixed with a sprinkle of bittersweet acceptance. He followed it with another text. "Tom, I'm sorry for everything." I typed back, "Good, now do better for yourself." His reply came seconds later. "I will." Then that was that. No begging, no manipulation, no one last chance theatrics. Just two people who had finally grown up. Separately, a week after that, I moved into my new condo. Fresh paint, clean floors, a balcony with a skyline view that made me feel like maybe, just maybe, I hadn't completely screwed up my life by marrying a man who once thought matching socks was a radical lifestyle change. My sister helped me unpack. "You seem different," she said. "In a good way. You're finally living like a human whose brain is functioning way. Fair." We opened a bottle of something sparkling and drinkable for once, and sat on the balcony while the city hummed below us. "You think he'll be okay?" she asked. "I do," I said, "and I think I'll be better." The truth, I wasn't fueled by revenge anymore. It had burned off, leaving something quieter, stronger, not forgiveness, exactly. More like closure with better lighting. By midnight, the city was glowing. My boxers were half unpacked, and for the first time in ages, I felt the weird, unexpected thrill of possibility. I didn't need Tom's downfall to rise. I just needed my own damn space to breathe, and I finally had it. Morning light spilled across my new condo. The skyline stretched wide and endless outside my balcony, a reminder that my world had grown bigger than any drama, any betrayal, any lingering resentment. I brewed coffee, leaned against the railing, and let the hum of the city fill my chest. For years, I'd felt like I was running in circles, chasing a life that wasn't mine, dragging someone else's baggage along with me. Now, every breath felt like reclaiming a piece of myself I hadn't even realized I'd lost. The condo smelled faintly of paint and fresh linen, the boxers I hadn't unpacked yet waiting patiently. My sister had left last night after helping me settle in. I felt a rare, profound calm, the kind that comes when chaos has finally run out of ways to find you. I picked up my phone. No messages from Tom, no guilt, no requests, just silence, absolute freedom. And with that silence came clarity. I realized I didn't need to obsess over his mistakes, his failures, or even his apologies. Life wasn't about revenge, even though it had felt satisfying to see him face the consequences of his own choices. Life was about growth, about moving forward while leaving what no longer served me behind. Reclaiming myself the next few weeks were a revelation. I painted the walls a soft, confident gray, the kind that whispers sophistication without shouting. I hung my favorite artworks on sets, abstract pieces, things that reminded me of possibility rather than past pain. I set up a reading nook near the balcony where sunlight pooled in the mornings, perfect for coffee and quiet reflection. I started small habits I had long neglected: morning runs, yoga stretches, journaling my thoughts, connecting with friends who genuinely uplifted me. Every action reinforced something profound. I could thrive on my own. Even my work began to flourish. Without the constant distraction of his antics, my focus sharpened. Deadlines were met, projects succeeded, and for the first time in years, I felt the satisfaction of accomplishments that weren't compromised by anyone else's chaos. Friends, family, and why my social life became richer, too. Friends I'd pushed aside in the stress of divorce reconnected. My sister, my closest confidant, became a constant support and cheerleader. We traveled, explored new restaurants, and laughed without hesitation. Even the mundane moments, grocery shopping, walking through the neighborhood, casual brunches felt vibrant. I realized something essential. Happiness wasn't loud or dramatic. It was consistent, steady, and mine to nurture. End slowly, almost imperceptibly. I noticed my posture change, my gaze lifted, my laughter carried more confidence. I was no longer reacting. I was existing, thriving, and building. The final message one afternoon. Weeks after moving, I received a short text from Tom. I almost didn't open it, but curiosity won. Tom, I wanted to let you know, I'm settling in here. I started therapy. I'm trying to do better. Thank you for not holding me back, even if I deserved it. I smiled, not bitterly, not smugly, just gently. I typed back, me, good. Now live that life, for yourself. His reply came seconds later. Tom, I will. And that was the end. No drama, no lingering tension, no what ifs. Just closure. Moving forward, he looked out the balcony again. The city pulsed beneath me, lights flickering like reminders that life goes on, that the world doesn't stop for anyone's heartbreak, and that new beginnings often come disguised as endings. I unpacked the last of my boxers, set my favorite plants by the windowsill, and made space for a life I had earned. No apologies, no debts to anyone but myself. I realized something else, too. Revenge might feel satisfying in a moment of betrayal, but freedom feels like sunrise spilling across your skin. Freedom feels like breathing deeply after years underwater. Freedom feels like walking away and knowing you will never be pulled back. And in that moment, I felt fully alive. The past had shaped me, yes, but it no longer defined me. Every betrayal, every lie, every sleepless night had carved a stronger, wiser version of myself. And now that version could finally flourish. I poured a cup of coffee, held it in my hands, and smiled. The city stretched endlessly before me, full of possibilities. And for the first time in years, I wasn't just surviving, I was living, I was thriving, and I was completely free.